Something in the water taught me how to crawl. Something in the water taught me how to fall. Something in my blood.
Welcome to another episode of Something in the Water podcast. I'm Sean Clark here with Uncle Dave Griffin.
Yes, sir. And we got some greats and almost greats.
He's great too.
No, that's an old Eddie Middleton thing. We got two of the finest men you could ever want to meet right here from a big county northeast of us here, McIntosh County, eh? Mr. Vic Waters and Willis Gore.
Yes, indeed. Glad to be here.
Howdy.
Two fine folks. So
Lord
tell us.
Vic.
You've been spending so much time in McIntosh County. I feel
Well,
like you're
I'm-
from there now.
I'm learning.
Yeah.
Seems like everywhere we go these days, we're going back. You know, so that's a good thing. And the more we go back, the more the folks become regulars in our lives. You know,
Oh, yeah.
that's a good thing.
Well, McIntosh County is a good place. I told the county commissioner, David Stevens, he's a friend of ours. I said, what we need to do is get us a sign to put at the south end of McIntosh County and the north end of McIntosh County. Welcome to McIntosh County. Set your clocks back 100 years. And I think that sums up McIntosh County.
That's nice.
And it's a very historical place,
Yeah, it is.
right on the coast of Georgia, right above Brunswick and below Savannah. Got a lot of ancient. You feel it.
Have you
When-
lived there
when you
your
get
whole
there.
life, Vic?
I was born and raised there, but I left when I got out of high school, and I went away on the road with a band, you know. Came back when I was 30 and been there for the rest of the time. So pretty much all my life,
Right.
yeah. Actually, I moved there when I was 10 weeks old, but I consider,
Right.
you know, I was
You
raised
don't remember
there.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was, my mom and dad, we was from Glenville, all my people. The Waters, there's a Waters under every rock in Glenville. And they split up when I was born.
Your parents?
Yeah, hell yeah. And I thought my name was going to be something other than Vic Waters because my daddy walked into the hospital room and he said, "Let's call it quits." And so I said, I thought to myself over the time, what a weird name, Quits Waters. But here I am, old Quits Waters sitting right here.
That was a quick surrender, wasn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, I've been there all my life. Born and raised. I'm the oldest guy on the bluff, Belleville Bluff, where you come to play music.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I came from, except before it was ever the fish dock, it was called Roscoe's place, a man named Roscoe Norman. He owned everything from that point all the way up past the Buccaneer, all the way to the end of White Bluff. And he subdivided all those lots up and sold them. Wow. And my grandma bought 4 of them for $100 a piece.
Is that where
And
you're
the
living
house,
now?
well,
One of those lots?
No, I bought this one later on, but where my grandma's house was, I built another house for my mother there. Me and my son did, and then when she passed away, I sold that house to somebody else, and then they sold it, and they sold it. But my grandma bought her house for $800 at Fort Stewart, Camp Stewart at the time.
Wow.
And paid $90 to move it all the way from Hinesville to Belleville Bluff.
Wow.
$90. And I was raised up in that house.
It cost me $200 to turn around a building in my yard. They didn't even leave the yard.
Yeah, really. But she bought those 4 lots for $100 a piece. And so built that house, moved it down there and set it there. Then when I went through the school through the 8th grade, 1958, there in Darien. Then I got sent off to military school, and that was a trip.
Where was that?
That was in Savannah Benedictine Military. I thought I was going to acting school, Dave, because my mother says it's about time for you to learn how to act. And so I went my ass off to military school and to learn how to act.
I remember that Benedictine. I remember seeing it on high school football scores.
Oh, yeah, man.
Did y'all play bowls?
No, we
Since
didn't
they
play
were
too many private schools. We played all the 4A schools around, Glen Academy, Savannah High School, Brunswick High.
You might have played Ware County.
What we did,
back in the
we
day.
used to play Waycross. It used to be called Waycross High School. This was back in the Stone Ages.
Oh, yeah. They were the Bulldogs.
Yeah, man.
We were the Gators. And when they consolidated the schools when was that?
94.
94. They put it to a vote among the populace, and Gators won out as the mascot. Pissed my wife off. She was a Bulldog cheerleader.
Oh, yeah.
She had it in her bloodstream.
Yeah.
She used to do splits for them Bulldogs.
Now she just does them for you.
No, she won't do them for me because I was a Gator. She hung me in effigy out in the backyard.
That's funny.
We also have Mr. Will Gore here, a dedicated student of Vic Waters.
Oh, no.
They have stories going way back. I think Vic chose Will for a good candidate for protege.
Well, I gave him, I think, one of his first guitar lessons when he was a little boy. He'd stick his tongue out, hitting that lick, and hell, 6 months after that, he was giving me lessons. He went right on, he took to it like a sand gnat takes to a baby head. And he went right on by me.
Yeah.
Well, there's not many things to do in McIntosh County, especially back in those days.
Yeah.
But his uncle's name was Will, too.
Yeah.
And he went missing at sea one time in a fishing tournament. We never heard from him again, but he used to come. I had a bar called the Oyster Shucker, and right there in Belleville, and it was it was the most eclectic place you ever seen. It had everything from brain surgeons to crabbers sitting right next to each other. I mean, every kind of people. And it was in the middle of the woods, like you had to know where you were going.
Right.
And he would come in. He went to Georgia Southern, and he would come home on the weekends, and he had a Martin D28 guitar, and he would come up there and he'd sing, and I'd play the piano, and he would sing, and he was just great, and everybody loved him. And he died, and Will never even got to meet him. But let me tell you something. I never really believed in that reincarnation thing until I met this little dude. No. When he, because he come in, he had on one of Will's hats. It was a hat like that when you got on, except it was beat up. And he came in, and my wife says, he looks just like his Uncle Will, don't he? I said, exactly. And he talked like him, and he acted like him, and he played the guitar, and everything. It was exactly the same person. And, I mean, it just freaked me out because I said, I can't believe it's too much of a coincidence for there not to be that family tie, Mm-hmm. But Uncle Will was his mama's brother. Mm-hmm. They were brothers. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm so glad that he was named for Will because he is Will. Mm-hmm. He is Will.
But you had already known him before.
When I first met him, he was just a little kid running around the bluff,
There was a space of time went by, and he came back, and you was like,
well, when he came to my house with that guitar, and wanting me to show him how to hit a D chord, mm-hmm. and that's when Sherry walked in the living room, and there where the piano and all was, and she went, "That's bizarre." I said, "That's just weird." I said, "I know, man. I can't get over it, But anyway, I mean, since he became an adult, we can't stand each other no more. But, we've really got to be buddies instead of old Mr. Waters and the kid.
The Vic and the kid.
Yeah.
Well, you performed his marriage ceremony about
sure did.
a year ago.
He knocked it out the park.
That was it was a year ago.
It's already been a year.
It's been a year and a few months.
Yeah. How's the divorce going? No,
She still keeps me around most of the time.
that was a hoot. I went to that one, and Vic officiated out there on the dock overlooking the Sapelo, I guess. What part of the Sapelo was that?
That's a Crescent River. What is that? Or Atwood Creek. What is that?
No, Atwood Creek's the river I live on.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, Atwood Creek. It's all part of the Sapelo tributary. There's a bunch of little creeks that's got different names. Just like, going from Darien to Crescent to Belleville to where I live, it ain't but 12 miles. And there's the Ridge. When you leave Darien, you go through the Ridge. You go through Connegan. You go through Meridian. You go through Valona. You go through Meadows Plantation where he lives. That's part of Meridian. In Valona, and then you go around what they call Oak Hill Curve. Like the Glens, they all live on Oak Hill Curve. And Oak Hill and Baysden Bluff and Crescent. And there's 6 communities right there.
It blows me away every time I ride through 17 there. And every one of them's got a post office.
Well, Meridian does, and Darien does, and Crescent does. But and Valona used to, but Miss what's her name died, and now it's just a rundown. Everybody gets their mail, I guess, at Meridian. You get your mail at Meridian?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they went through a thing where they started consolidating.
Yeah.
Save money.
I guess.
Rich heritage over there, and music's a lot of it.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any other famous people of any sort that
Nah, ain't nobody
really
famous, but
preceded y'all?
I remember I wrote a thing in that magazine. When I was a kid and living at Roscoe's place, I moved up the hill to Grandma's house when I started first grade, 6 years old. But until then, my grandma was the cook at Roscoe's, and my mom and my aunt were the waitresses. And it was an old wooden structure, 2 stories, and downstairs was a restaurant and the helps quarters. That's where we lived, and my grandma and my mama and me. And then at the other end was the kitchen. Then upstairs was 8 units, and they rented it out for like fishermen and stuff like that. We rented boats and motors and sold live bait and stuff like that. And I say they did. I just stuck around and got in everybody's way. But yeah, they used to bring in a string band from Brunswick about once or twice a month, and they were called a string band. I don't know if it had a name. Later on, 2 or 3 different people told me different names. But they would play. They had like a couple of fiddles and a couple of guitars. Didn't have no drums. But and they had a bass fiddle sometimes. They'd have a bass fiddle. But they would come in and play for square dances. And they had a man named Hollerin' Henry Tootle. I'll circle left, and everybody go to the left a while. Circle right. They'd go back to the right, and then they'd old crow in, old crow out, and they'd circle up 4 or 5 people, and they'd do that thing. And I was mesmerized. I'd go and stand in the doorway with the door cracked open, watching them. And hell, I knew right then I wanted to be one of them people.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in that music part of it. And it was a trip, man.
Is that building Roscoe's? Any of that exist in the current building?
No,
Or is it all gone?
it burnt. Roscoe Norman sold that place to the Barnett family, and they run a restaurant there for a while. Shrimp dinner cost $2.50, and a seafood platter $3.50.
Wow.
And that was the day, man. And they sold it to the Barnett family. And the Barnett family kept it until 1965, and it burned down, caught on fire and burned down. And then Mike Phillips came in and built Pelican Point.
Pelican Point.
And Phillips Seafood, the whole little clam factory and all everything down there.
Attached to it, ain't it?
Yeah, that's all under the same thing. He had a great big old tennis court in there.
Yeah, someone was telling me about something like a bowling alley or tennis court.
It was a tennis court, and it was like world class. They brought in this clay from up in North Georgia for the ground part of the floor, and people would come from miles around to play tennis with Mike Phillips. He fired me one time, man. I was playing there, me and my boys playing every weekend for like 2 or 3 years, and we'd play Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. packed. And let me tell you why he fired me. I've never been fired for such a weird reason, but it was a Saturday night. And there was a group of guys from Townsend, people from Townsend, Mickey Riles and all his family. Everything on Riles Road was related to Mickey. And wherever Mickey went, everybody went. And there'd be about 20 of them would come with him. And they would drink and spend money and just have the best time and go crazy. And we were playing Pink Cadillac. Remember that song? Mm-hmm. We was playing Pink Cadillac, and the floor was packed full of people. And they was all out there. Pink Cadillac, and they were stomping like they said, and it was upstairs. Mm-hmm. You've played up there. Mm-hmm. Well, it was just, the whole building was doing like they said, boom, boom. And Mike Phillips, he came running up to the stage. He went, "Cut it." And I went, "What?" "Pink Cadillac, cut it. Pink Cadillac." I said, "What?" "Cut it." He's giving it this.
The universal signal.
And so I turned around to the band. I just flagged them off, and everybody stopped and looked at each other like, "What we do?" And he says, "Play it slow when they starting to riot." And I went, "What? Starting to riot?" And he said, "Hey, starting to riot. Just play it slow." So I done something, George, on my mind. And I got done. I took a break, and I went back. I said, "What's the beef?" He said, They gonna cause trouble. They're rioting." And I said, "They ain't rioting, they're juking." I said, "There's a difference, I said, "They're having a good time."
That's what you want.
And and I said, I strive all night long to get them in that frame of mind. That's what we do. That's what musicians do. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Well, I don't want them to do it in here." And so he said, "Just keep it on the low." And so I said, "All right." We went up there and we bored hell out of them for the next hour or so. And the next day I went down to get my money. And I got in there and he said, "I'm going to have to let you go." And I said, "Why?" And he says,
"Too many complaints.
All you drawing in is the rednecks and the white booters." I said, "The white booters are your people from them boats downstairs because ain't a damn one of them got a driver's license. They all DUI'd out." And I said, "And they can walk upstairs here and have a good time." And I says, "And that's why they up here." And I said, "And as far as them rednecks go," I said, "every one of them's got a real good job, drives a real nice car, and has a real good family, and they just having a real good time." And he said, "Well, that ain't what I want here." He said, "I want the sophisticates from like around Jessup." And I said,
"What?"
"Number one." I said, "Number one, there ain't no such a damn thing as a sophisticate from Jessup." And that's where he's from. That was his whole family's from there. And he said, "Well, that's what I want." He said, "I'm going to let you go. I'm going to get a piano bar." So he got this girl named Ruby something. She was real good. She played the piano, and he put her downstairs back in that back room. And he went to a piano bar. And he didn't start back with real live entertainment for a long time. And I think he had to die, and Charlie started it back up.
Right?
But yeah, he
I had
fired
never
me.
been to Pelican's Point. I heard so many people talk about it back in the day, and
Well, it was just like it is now.
knew it was a musician's venue. Mm-hmm. A lot of people gigged up there and all, but I didn't enter the room until probably about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, we were the house band there for 3 years. I loved it because I could walk to work, man. From where I live, I would just walk down the road
About a
and
block and a half.
walk back home.
It's beautiful over there, though. Really.
Yeah.
Good folks, too. Met a lot of good folks over there. That's where we met James and Denise. They started following Pine Box, and I met them at Bluebird Cafe that night. Me and you and Sean played.
Blue Jay.
Blue Jay listening room.
Bluebird Cafe in Nashville, down in Jacksonville. Blue Jay listening room. And three of us were playing a night there, and James and Denise had been following you or probably Pine Box at that time. Mm-hmm. And they showed up, been friends ever since. And they live right.
Yeah,
Two
catty
houses
corner
down
across the
from me.
road. Yeah, and 2 houses down.
Yeah.
I remember when they moved, they came in there, and I was going to doing something. I was leaving the house, I saw him standing in the front yard talking to Gerald Sellers. He was a real estate guy there. And they were standing out there. And, James, he's got that beard and that gray hair and everything, and I pulled up there and I says, "You guys dealing with this guy?" Talking about James.
Gerald
Sellers.
Yeah.
Gerald Sellers. He said, and he introduced me to him. They were retirees from West Virginia, and they were coming down to look at property. They bought it. They've been there ever since.
Mm-hmm.
We was glad to have them. I told them, I said, if you can stand us, we can stand you. We got a good little neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
When you took off to play in the band for 10 years or so.
Well, I played in the band a lot longer than that, but
I mean, when you left.
When I left Belleville, yeah.
What?
I graduated from high school, and the day after I graduated, a boy that went to Benedictine, he graduated 2 years before me, he was a drummer. He lived in St. Petersburg, Florida with his family. He was up there going to school, just like I was. And the day after I graduated, he said, "We need a piano player." And I went, "Hell yeah, count me in." And so I went home, told my mama, I said, "I'm booking up." And she said, "That's good. It's, and she always wanted me to be a dentist." But when I went down there and we went on the road, man, playing music forever. And then I put together a big old band. I had a 12-piece band, and we went all over the country. That was
Miscellaneous.
That was the Entertainers. And we went all over the country, and we recorded, we cut records, and we had a heck of a show. And broke up. And how I ended up coming back in 1974 was, that's the Impact, Sarah. That guy second from the left, that's the guy that went to Benedictine.
St. Pete.
Yeah. And he was in St. Pete. The guy
What
on the
year
far
was
right's
this?
Dennis Blue. He was from Athens, Tennessee. And the bass player there, playing that nice little jazz bass. I wish I had that. That's Tony Brown.
What year was this?
That was in 1962, 63.
So this would have been a year after Benedictine.
Mm-hmm.
And you played the trumpet.
I played the trumpet, and I didn't play it but about 2 songs because most of the time I just sang out front and played the keyboard. I played the organ.
Mm-hmm.
And
Is that red hair?
oh, yeah. Real red, man.
About
I saw this kid at the Piggly Wiggly the other day. He said, and he had flaming red hair, man. And I walked up there and I looked at him. I went, "Boy," I said, "when I was your age, my hair looked exactly like yours." And he said, "Oh, yeah?" I said, "Yeah, and this is what you got to look forward to." And he went, "Yikes." I always seen that word wrote down somewhere, but I never heard anybody use it.
That's pretty good.
Yikes. Oh, man.
Oh.
Yeah, man, that
The
was red hair and a
impacts.
bunch of it. We was all slicked up.
And y'all played 62, 63. Y'all would have been playing.
We put the Entertainers together in 1966. So that was we stayed in that band 4 years.
What would y'all been playing in this band? Ventures?
No. Heck no. We played R&B, man. We
Oh,
played,
this is an R&B group.
yeah, we played I Don't Want to Cry, Chuck Willis,
Nah,
and
hell.
Otis Redding.
Hey.
And, yeah, we added a saxophone player about a year after that picture was taken, and he kind of took over as far as the arrangement goes because he was a school musician. He went to Florida State and was in the music program there, and so he done all the horn arrangements. And when we put the Entertainers together, actually what we done, there was a band out of Roanoke, Virginia called the Spinners. Not the ones that you heard, but this is another band. And they played the same kind of music we did. And so we combined the two groups, and then we started adding horn players. We ended up with like 6 horns and 5-piece rhythm section and me and no money.
Band's been big.
You split your money 12 ways and see what happens to it. And plus we had an agent to pay, a manager to pay, and we had a wardrobe fee. Every week, 5% of our money came out to go buy new clothes.
Wardrobe special.
Wow.
We had purple suits and all kind of shit, you know. And That's how we met. That's how I met James Brown. We had that band, and we were playing at Soul City Ballroom in Atlanta. James Brown, Soul City Ballroom. But James didn't own it. A guy named Billy Watson owned it, but he paid James a royalty to use his name on the sign. And James would come there twice a year or 3 times a year and just make a quick appearance. And so he came in there, and he liked our band. He sat in, sang some with us, and then hired us to do some shows. And matter of fact, Maceo Parker, his saxophone player, quit James and went to Fort Lauderdale with me and my band.
Wow.
Because we gave him $350 a week, and James paid him $300 a week and hadn't paid him in 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And Clyde Stubblefield played drums for James Brown. He played with him for 30 years, and most he ever made was $300 a week. Wow. $300 a week. And his brother Ike just passed away this year.
That's right.
Lynn
met him.
Yeah, he used to
That
come
night
to
we played in
Sunbury and
Macon.
play kind of regular at Sunbury Crab Country. But James, he was crazy about us because we done all this stuff. You know, Papa got a brand new band. I said, when I heard you say that, Lynn, you said could do a split. I used to do splits too. I did the whole James Brown show, man, and I'd get out there and do a split.
Dang.
I was
Show that third picture, I think it is.
That's
Fourth.
it. That's me with the spats
There,
on.
right
you go.
there.
James Brown.
You remember what you were saying?
Yeah, pull my finger.
Seriously?
I don't know.
You said you're never going anywhere. That guy, that second guy is looking at you like, this is deep.
That was our bass player. He played with the Spinners. He was our bass player, and the entertainers, Don Hunsinger. And Jerry Michael, the other guy standing next to James there, he was, he co-produced my albums,
Wow.
my 3 albums. He's in Muscle Shoals, still doing in the music business.
Dang.
He owns the Impressions songbook.
Doorbell? Got the doorbell?
Has mine in the other room.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
there's that fancy music again.
Y'all got good ears, man.
I'm talking. Look at that. That's backstage somewhere.
At Soul City.
Soul City.
Yeah. That's Maceo back there in the corner. And
That's Maceo.
boy,
He's
he
like,
could play
and you're
the
telling
saxophone.
him, I'm taking Maceo with us.
He looks worried, don't he?
Our first meeting wasn't real pleasant, man. I was back there, and we had this girl on the show, one of James's proteges. Her name was Marva Whitney, and she was great, man. She brought a string section with her, had 3 violins that she traveled with her, but she didn't have the rest of a band, and that was us. And she says, she was just could sing her butt off. And so I'm back there, and I said, I was going to tell him that if she wanted to do any of the songs that I was doing in our show, that I would leave them out, and she could do them. And I went, hey, James, if she wants to do any of my songs, and he snapped his fingers in my face like I was a little boy. He went, hey, you don't call me James. You call me Mr. Brown. And I said, what? I wasn't used to that, man. I was from Belleville. And he said, and I'll call you, what's your name? I said, Vic. He said, what's your whole name? I said, Waters. He said, I'll call you Mr. Waters. And so I said, you're fine. And I just kind of backed up. Wasn't nothing I could do because he had all his bodyguards and his goons in there. And we went on. And it was like that the first night. But then after we had met a few times, one night he came up to me. He says, we got off on a bad foot. We got to get on the good foot. And I said, okay. And he said, you can call me James and I'll call you Vic. I said, all right, man. I said, that's good. And so from there on out, it was pretty cool. Yeah. But I stole his damn thunder one night in Tampa Stadium. He was playing there at the big sombrero. And the stage was set up in the middle of the field, the football field, and it was facing up one side. It was only one side. It wasn't a full stadium. It was a one-sided deal. And it was up there, and I had on this black suit, black shirt, everything was black. But I had a cape that my mother-in-law had made for me. and it came down behind my knees like Zorro, and the cape was black, and the inside of it was zebra print.
Oh my God!
And it had two big red rooster heads, one on this side and one on this side, big red rooster heads. And the stadium was filled. It looked like Zimbabwe. I was the only guy. Well, no, there was a few white people there, but not many. And James was out there doing a show, and I was sitting front row, had VIP tickets. And he looked over and he saw me and he went, "Get it, Vic." And I stood up and I spread my cape out and I turned around to the audience with them rooster heads, and the crowd went crazy. They just started screaming. They didn't even know who the hell I was. I had no idea, but they knew them rooster heads was cool. And they were screaming. And that was my statement back to James.
Oh man, that's awesome.
But he ended up being pretty cool, after I got to know him.
Back up 2.
He goes,
All right.
that was the Big Brothers there.
So this is between. Was this before? No, this
That was before the Entertainers. That was we was in New York City, playing the Peppermint Lounge, and where they had invented the twist. Mm-hmm. And that was a good gig, man. We stayed at the Knickerbocker Hotel on 42nd Street, and that was on the Peppermint was on 45th, 2 blocks over.
Any of the same guys from the Impacts in that one?
The guy playing the guitar up in the left-hand corner is Dennis Blue. He's the one from Athens, Tennessee. And the bass player was from Athens, Tennessee. They had a little band in Savannah at a place called Alley's Wharf down in Thunderbolt. And it was a 4-piece band. And I went in there one night and sat in with them. I was home for Christmas. Went home to see my family. Mm-hmm. And I went down there and sat in, asked them what they was doing. Nothing. I said, "Listen, I got some gigs coming up in New York, and I could sure use a band." And so they went to New York with me.
Go one more.
That was the Entertainers.
Is that Hugh Rogers? The Rogers Agency?
Rogers Agency, yeah.
Was that Hugh Rogers?
Yeah.
I know of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of.
That was that was a time.
Y'all look more like grown men in this one.
I know, man. And that's amazing because we was only early 20s.
Yeah.
But we had hair.
That was the big, large group.
Yeah. That ain't even all of them. We added a couple after that picture was taken, a couple more to spend the money on.
Are you wearing spats?
Mm-hmm.
What spats?
Them things that go
Shoe
down
cover.
over your shoes like gangsters used to wear.
Mm-hmm. No, Hugh Rogers, I think he was starting to handle Bill and John's band, Homeward Angel.
He had a guy working for him that was our manager for a while named Johnny B. Did you ever know Johnny B?
Johnny B. Moses.
Johnny B. Moses, yeah.
The great disc jockey of WACL radio. He used to be a music promoter around here too, where he would hire bands to come into the city auditorium, and once a year he'd do the B Baby.
Yeah.
He did B Baby Hops, he called them. Then he did the B Baby grand thing in the Memorial Stadium down there in my 6th grade year. Went out there and saw what were they? I think they were called Ronnie and the GTOs, and they had a girl band. Then they had Dale Shannon.
Oh yeah,
as the headliner. Got his autograph on the back of my 6th grade school picture.
Johnny got us hooked up with Dan Penn, who produced.
Wrote and produced.
Yeah, he wrote "Do Right Man, Do Right Woman" at the dark end of the street. I'm Your Puppet. I mean, he wrote a bunch of hits. He's just a young hell. He was 25 maybe when he was producing us. We cut in Memphis.
Penn and Oldham.
Yeah, Spooner Oldham. And I cut a couple of his songs. But we cut "I'm White and I'm All Right." That was an answer to James Brown "Say It Loud." Yeah, that was his idea. That song, I wrote the song, but he said you ought to write an answer. That was back when everybody wrote answers.
Yeah,
like answer to a boy named Sue was a girl named Sam. That was a chick from Hoboken, Lois Hutchison,
Waker, Georgia.
Yeah, and
need to find her.
I'll save the last dance for you.
Yeah.
Honky Tonk.
Honky Tonk Angels.
Uh-huh.
And then Kitty Wells said,
Yeah.
answered back with, it wasn't God
They made Honky
who
Tonk.
made
Right.
Honky Tonk.
The other
Angels.
one was
I can't remember who did it, but he
Hank
was.
did it. I don't know who wrote it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you
Save
start
the last
writing?
dance for me, and I'll save the last dance for you. That was one.
Doc Thomas.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a bunch of them.
Yeah, what was your entry into music to start all these bands? Were you already playing in high school or something?
Well, I got my first gig that I got paid for when I was in the 9th grade. Bobby Barnes, the guy second from the left up there, that's the one that went to Benedictine. He called me one day. He says, "Hey, man, I got you a job in a band. You want it?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "Okay." He says, "It's playing for sorority at Groves High School." David, we made $5 a piece. $5 a piece at the Emeralds. That was the name of the band. We went out there and just a dream, just a dream. You know, we was doing them kind of songs. Everything was 4 chords or either just 3-chord rock and roll, but it was just ice cream changes. And in the night, I says, "Golly, I get all this." You know, I was happy. I'd have done it for
Heck
free.
yeah, that was an important
But I've
$5.
done that through high school, played in little bands. I played with Billy Joe Royal, some at the Bamboo Ranch with Buddy Livingston's band. I think there's a picture somewhere I sent you that's Billy Joe and the band, and Johnny B's in it.
Yeah. Johnny B was in Billy Joe Royal's band?
No. He was in that picture that I sent.
Oh, okay.
And it was, we done that. And then, like I say, Bobby came when I graduated, and he says, "Come to Florida with me, man." And so I went down there and just started doing more of it.
I know you playing horn in one of those early bands,
Yeah,
and you
I
played
didn't
keyboards
play- I
to
didn't
begin
play-
with. Where did it come from?
What, the horn?
The horn and the keyboard. I mean,
Oh, well,
how'd you get into them?
I started playing the piano when I was a little kid. We had a piano in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And I took piano lessons for about 2 weeks. And it was this lady named Miss Jolly. She lived at the Ridge. And it was like Thompson's Beginner.
Yeah.
C, 2, 3, 4. D, 2, 3, 4. And E. And I went, I don't know how long I can stand this. And Hunter Forsyth, who was a friend of mine, he was from Valona. He said, "No, man, hell, let me show you how to do that." And he said, "Put your fingers like this and go, bumpa, 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 bumpa." And I went, "All right, now we're talking." And from there, it was just, that's all I wanted to do.
So you just
And
picked
then
it up by ear?
in the school band, you could be in a school band, or you could go to religion every Friday.
Which,
I was in the school band. I played trumpet. And then when I got out, like I said, in the band, I didn't play but about 2 songs in the trumpet. I learned my part, but I wasn't no trumpet player by no means. And I done that. That guy in the middle right behind me is Lance Abear. His daughter is Mindy Abear. She's a smooth jazz chart topper. She's got it going on pretty good. And when I gave her the name, she was looking for a name of a song. Her CDs, you ought to check them out, man. They're great. And she was looking for the name of a song, and she had one called Strutting My Stuff. And I said, "Mindy, that makes you sound like a hooker." You know, I said, that ain't good. And so she said, "Well, I can't think of a name for it." I said, "How about Girls Night Out?" And so she used it on the album. And on the back on the album cover, on the back in the liner notes, it says, a special thanks to my dear friends, Don Was and Vic Waters. And I went, just to get your name mentioned in the same sentence as Don Was, I said, it makes people think that I'm part of his damn deal. And I said, that was a pretty cool little compliment. And another one, there was this guy, he was Mr. Florida. He was a bodybuilder, weightlifter kind of guy. And he was a dentist by trade, but his deal was bodybuilding. And there was a big article in the Tampa Tribune about Craig Whitehead was his name. Craig Whitehead, Mr. Florida, blah, blah, blah. And then it says, and what, it was an interview, and they said, "And what do you like to do?" He said, "I like to listen to good music by like Ray Charles and Vic Waters." I went, whoa, what? And so I got that. I got it in my scrapbook, and I got it underlined in red. Been in there for 50 years. And yeah, man, I said, heck yeah, just to get mentioned in the same sentence.
No kidding.
You know.
Lance Abear, that just rings a bell with me. Did he
Lance
do
played,
anything else?
Yeah, man, he
Young,
played
did
with
he?
Grand Funk Railroad for a while.
Really?
He played keyboards with them, and he played with Mark Farner.
Yeah.
And that band, and he's been on the road all his life. Then he was a Korg representative. He'd go around the country to different music stores and do these clinics for Korg.
Mm-hmm.
He's a heck of a musician. He was the first horn player we added with the Impacts.
Yeah.
And that guy, Bobby Tate, second from the right, that big tall guy, his son is Jamie Tate. He's a first call session player out in L.A. now. He's a drummer. And his daughter is a choreographer that did the J-Lo halftime show.
Wow.
She did the Clamshell Review with Bette Midler. She did Cirque du Soleil in the Vegas, that Austere or whatever it's called. She's about 6 feet tall, but she's a dancing fool.
Wow.
And so he's real happy.
You ever keep up with these guys?
I keep up with Bobby, the one I was just talking about. I keep up with Bobby Barnes, the one on the second left. I keep up with Jerry from Muscle Shoals. He's far left. The one leaning down behind the post, he's passed away.
Yeah.
The one behind Lance's shoulders passed away. The one leaning around the right-hand column there, Gene Hilliard, he played Barry Sachs. He's passed away. And the one on the far right, he was a Dodge dealer in Vegas. He owned 3 Dodge dealerships. He went on to make all the money in the world. He's passed away, so I don't think he got to take none of it with him. But he had 3 Dodge truck dealerships.
Wow.
In Las Vegas, man. He got sick. When the band broke up, he stayed in Vegas and got a medallion to wholesale cars. You got to have that little thing. And him and another guy went in partners and bought a medallion. It cost him $65,000, but it gave him the right to wholesale cars. And he parlayed that into 3 dealerships. So some of them done pretty good, and some of them just died. And
So-
me, I'm circling the drain myself.
So after this group, what year was it when this group?
I came back home to, I went back to Tampa, St. Petersburg, and I played around Tampa with a little 4-piece band. We had a band called Chillum, and a little funk band, you know, and we was playing bars up and down Dale Mabry and here and there, just being a bar band. And then when it came time for Shad, my oldest boy, who's 55, it came time for him to start the first grade. And I said, Sherry, we got 2 choices. We can stay here and live on this busy-ass street, or we can go to Belleville and live in Grandma's house. There wasn't nobody living there at the time. And so let Shad go to school in Darien. I said, what do you want to do? I didn't figure she'd ever want to come back to the woods because she was a city girl. And she said, let's go to Belleville.
Where was she from?
St. Petersburg, born and raised.
Sherry's from down there.
And so we came back to Belleville, and we was there forever. And
What year were you playing in St. Petersburg and Tampa?
well, that band broke up. That band there broke up in like 1972.
Oh, okay.
And then I gigged around there, and then in 74, we moved back to Belleville. I called David Hornsby. There used to be a Ramada Inn. You know out at exit 58, where there's like a Huddle House and used to be a Ramada Inn, but now it's a Magnuson Inn or something like that, and a Shell station, and the highest gas prices in the county.
58 is
That's Eulonia.
Little.
Yeah.
That's the exit I take.
And so
That's
David
right.
Hornsby owned a Ramada Inn there. I called him. I said, you using live entertainment out there? He said, yeah, man. He said, me and him was in the first grade together right on up till I went off to military acting school. I said, what is it? He said, I got some organ player from Ludowici. Sounds like he ought to be playing funerals in the daytime. And I said, fire his ass.
I just feel so sorry for him. I can't fire him.
Yeah, I said, fire him, man, and hire me. And he said, what you gonna do? I said, I'll come play my flat top. And I had never done a single in my life. And but I had a Martin. And he did. And I came home and started playing out the whale's tail. Take the ribbons from your hair. And writing songs, born and raised on the Sapelo River. Mm-hmm. And I've done that for ever. And, just gigged around doing a single. Mm-hmm. And then when my boys got old enough to play, we formed a 3-piece band. And then they moved away. Mason went off to, they both went to Georgia. Shad didn't graduate. He went in the Navy after a couple of years. And Mason went on and graduated. But while he was up there, it was pretty cool because he was in a band called the Common People. They had a red school bus that said, "The Common People, bringing you the sound of Motown." And it was a 10-piece band, all black. And he was, while he was up there, he had long hair, he had Will Gore hair. And he saw a sign, a thumbtack index card on the store bulletin board, music store. And it said, "Wanted bass player for the Common People band." And so some guy said, "You ought to try out for that, Mason." And he said, "They get all the good gigs, man. They're a dress-up band. They wear tuxedos and stuff and play country clubs and all that." And so he went, and there was like 6 or 7 guys ahead of him, all black bass players. But he and they were intimidating. They "I'm next. You got something? I'm next." And they get up there and they was doing that Seinfeld bass, that shooting arrows. And they all finished up, and the common people, Big Charles, the alto sax, he was the leader. And they was all looking because they wasn't playing Motown bass like Bob Babbitt or James Jamerson. They wasn't playing none of that. And so Big Charles walked over and he said, "Son, you ever heard any of these songs?" Mason called me at 11 o'clock at night, and he said, "Dad, it was your song list." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah." Dang. And they tried him out on "Tired of Being Alone," Al Green. Mm-hmm. And Mason had learned that off of I cut that one time, and the bass player, doom, 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 doom. It's simple. It's Motown. And so he got up there and he played it, and they all looked at each other and said, "Who is this white boy?" Because and so then they done another Al Green tune, then they done something else. But he got the job. Oh, yeah. And so his head was this big around. Mason called me, and he said, "I got the job, Dad." He said, "Out of 7 people, I got the job." I said, "Mason, you need to cool your jets right now." I said, "The reason they hired you is when they got that red school bus full of Afro-Americans, and they're driving through the Dunwoody Country Club, and the cop pulls them over. They're going to say, 'Mason, get out and talk to the police.'" They didn't hire you because you're so great. And he said, oh, no, I knew how to play what they wanted to hear." But, yeah, man, that worked out. He went all the way through college playing with that band. Yeah. Then he moved to Nashville to be a rock star, and that didn't work out, so he had a job up there as an accountant for Primus Industries, which is, they handle all the Ford Motor leasing, and it's a $20 million a year thing, and so that's how he got that. And then he went on to be a president of the United Community Bank, and a regional president in Brunswick, and surrounding areas. And Shad went and done his 4 years in the Navy, and he was the drum major in the Navy band for 4 years, man. He had a good gig. And he got out of that and went to work for the federal government. He's works over at the Carl Vinson Medical Center in Dublin. Mm-hmm. Got him a government job. And so everybody's happy.
Good, man. Mm-hmm. Well, you had a big impact on him, sounds like. I mean, you must not have been around a lot, though.
I took him with me. When Shad was a little boy, man, we lived on the road, and I mean, he was right there. Like I said, we didn't get off the road until he was in the 1st grade, and it was time we had to land.
Right there with you.
Yeah. And that was
soaked it up.
Yeah.
Well, when was your, when did this happen?
Oh. Well, the first one was cut. That's the 3rd one there. The first one we cut in 1977 in Nashville, and the second one it came out. We cut them both at the same time, but it came out in 78 or 79, and then that one there came out in 1980. But I had all the cream of the crop players on there. Larry London played drums. Reggie Young was the guitar player. Mike Leach and David Hungate were the bass players. David Briggs played. He played with Elvis. Him and Larry London both. He was the piano player.
Briggs did Quadraphonic Studios, didn't he? And Neil Young.
Yeah. David Briggs also stole Elvis's girlfriend one time. I said, man, because he was ugly as a mud hole. I said, how could you steal Elvis's girlfriend? He said she was tired of the way he was treating her, and I treated her different. And so that was pretty cool. But he could play a piano, man.
You recorded in the same studio.
David Briggs studio,
Yeah.
House of David.
House of David.
Actually, I didn't cut in David's studio. He came to the studio. We cut at Pete Drake's studio. And we cut that stuff, and it was a good studio. Al Pacheco was the...
Who were you signed with anybody for this, or just independent?
Yeah, and Silver Jingle, that little record label there, it was an independent deal. It never was it was released nationally, but without that, if you ain't got one of the 6 majors behind it, I don't care how good the record is. It done.
So but is this the first release of Cooter Brown?
Yeah. Ray Stevens went on and cut Cooter Brown. A couple of different people have cut that.
So how did that come about?
Well, I've worked with Ray a few times, and Jerry took it to him, and he liked it. But now there's a song, Hey Captain. Is that on that record?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey Captain. And one from my first one, You've Come a Long Way, Baby. And Thinking About Cranking My Ragged Old Truck Up was a Billy Joe Shaver tune, but I cut it. But it was cut over in Norway by some guy named Olaf Johansson, but he went by the name of Big Hand. And he was a great big old dude, man. I mean, this guy was like 6'6", 6'7", and he was just he called me to get publishing on those songs. Called me, and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and my phone rang, and he goes, "A beak of water." And I went, "What?" And I said, I don't know what the hell he was talking about. Beak of water. And I said, what? And he says, hey, Captain, something. He said, but he was trying to speak English, but it was really Norwegian to death. And he was speaking phonetically. He had learned it, And he said, he wanted to get the publishing on it, but he said, "Big water," and then he said, "You sound like the Kenny Broger." He wanted to tell me I sounded like Kenny Rogers, which I don't sound nothing like Kenny Rogers. That's all he could relate to. Right. But he put it out on an album, Big Hand and Casino. That was the name of his band. And matter of fact, I got a royalty check that's in my scrapbook right now for airplay in Norway from BMI.
Yeah.
And each check has got a code on it, and like the Norway code is Tono, Tono. I don't know what it stands for, something, but anyway, it's for $1.30 for airplay. It was my song, but it wasn't me singing. It was him. I said, I ain't gonna never cash that because 2 reasons. Number one, I don't want the people at the bank know what a loser I am. and number 2, I got to keep this in the scrapbook just to prove it actually happened.
That's crazy, man. You and I's stories intersect in so many ways. And I've had that exact experience with me and Billy Ray wrote together in the early 90s and got 7 co-writes published with Lowry out of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And same thing happened. And we also went up there and recorded 2 sides. It was their first CD released to radio. Lowry on the, what was his studio? Lowry said, something sound.
Yeah, I
Studio,
went up.
I
I
can't
recorded
remember.
up there. Buddy Bowie produced my session, but nothing ever came of it. I just I went up there and cut about a half a dozen tunes.
That CD of ours got released in Denmark or somewhere over there, and we got that royalty check from that over there, and it was about like it was very low.
Yeah, I cut at Capricorn too. Johnny Sandlin produced it, but nothing ever came of that either. A lot of my stuff. They said one guy wrote up. He said that I was too rock for country, too country for rock and roll. And I said, yeah, that's pretty much me. But Ray Stevens, I worked several gigs with him, and down in Florida, traveling around doing gigs. You know, he's a funny dude. He's a heck of a musician, though, man.
Oh my gosh. Everything.
Now, I'll tell you what was the coolest thing where I got my head blood. That first band, the Impacts, we cut with King Records, and we had 2 albums released. And one was called Weekend with Impacts, and the other one was called Impact by the Impacts. And we had these red shirts, black pants and red shirts. We had a little minivan, not a minivan, but a 40 Econoline van, had the Impacts wrote on it, you know. And on the first one, we standing out in the middle of Rickenbacker Causeway, and we all in our rock and roll pose. You know, one of them. And they stopped traffic. Had a cop go down there and stop traffic so we could get our picture too. And the second one, we were sitting on top of that van, and the shirts were green. It was the same shirts, but they had colorized them, made them green. But Bobby Barnes, second from the left guy, he called me one day and said, Vic, you ain't gonna believe this. I said, what? He said, our album on King, Impact by the Impacts, and he said, or maybe it was Weekend with the Impact, it don't matter, but he said, it just sold on eBay for $135. And I went, what? It sucked. It was the worst record you've ever heard in your life. And we cut it in Cincinnati, Ohio. And come to find out the reason it brought such high bucks, it was the last album on King Records that had the crown for a logo. It had a little crown that said, where it said King. And then they went to another kind of logo. Wow. And that made it a collector's item.
Wow.
Yeah, didn't have nothing to do with the music. It was
Wow.
man, oh man.
Did you find out who bought it?
No. Well, Katie bought one of my singles one time for how much you pay for that, man? $25.
Something like that.
All
I
right.
couldn't believe it. I told him, see, if you don't come over to the house, I got one somewhere, I know.
So the albums turned into CDs, and you had some CD
Yeah,
releases, no?
3.
And
That's the third one there, that record there. And actually, I thought the first one was much better record, but that one there is not quite as country as the first 2. The second one the first one was called Living This Kind of Life, and the second one was called High Water Britches. And that one.
you used to sell them at gigs?
I used to.
Yeah.
I had a mail order. I had a late night television commercial. One of them Conway Twitty deals, you know. I started it out on. I ain't never had no money, but I got enough records to choke a mule. I said, but I would love for you to have one. And then they would play little snippets of each song, you know, and oh God. Send $8 to Vic Waters, Crescent, Georgia. Man, oh man.
Mm-hmm. Where did Billy Ray see you? Do you remember it?
Billy Ray Heron?
Yeah.
He used to come see me at all the bars I worked at on the island, chances are, and the Holiday Inn there on Gloucester and Highway 17. And
That was in the 70s, maybe, 80s?
74.
74.
Yeah.
You know, that was right. He and I formed our first band in 74. That's the first band that I ever played and made money in, called Sweetbriar. And about a year later, we had moved on, and he was out of the band. That was probably right around that time.
Yeah.
Because he was still craving the stage. He could still do that. Now he's a big homebody. He don't leave the house.
No,
But,
I can relate.
Yeah.
This is the furthest I've been out of town, and I can't remember when.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Now you did a little. Somebody told me it was probably you, but you had a restaurant in Florida at one time or something, right?
yeah, this was in the 1990, 91, 92.
Dang, that recent.
Yeah. I went through a divorce. Sherry and I were married 25 years and got a divorce for 6 years and been back married 26 years. So we've been 51 out of 57. And so that time when we was divorced, I went to Florida, and me and a partner of mine, we opened a restaurant, and man, I got spanked. I learned a good lesson. If you want to make a small fortune in a restaurant business, start with a large fortune. And it was a beautiful place, man. It was right on the water, and our overhead was just unbelievable, and we was getting robbed blind. I was in bed one night about 3 o'clock in the morning, and the phone rang. It was the St. Petersburg, Florida Police Department. Is this Mr. Waters? Yes, it is. Are you the proprietor of Blind Pass Grill? I said, yes, I am. He said, well, we got a young man down here that says he works for you. Are you familiar with Ramon Alvarez? I went, I don't know, man. I said, I got all these guys in the kitchen. I don't know none of them, because when you're in a big city, like at Crescent, I know everybody that applies for the job.
Mm-hmm.
Know where they come from, know who the family is. But in a big city like that, all they are is an application.
Yeah.
And so he said, well, we believe this guy might work for you. He said, because we just stopped him DUI on Central Avenue and 34th Street, and he's got a case of prime rib loins in the trunk of his car and 2 cases of 10-ounce filet mignons. Well, them prime rib loins cost $135 a piece. And I said, I believe they are too. He says, well, he said, it's him and 3 other guys, but we can only write him. He says, what do you want us to do with this meat? It's warm. I said, you keep it divided up amongst your buddies down there, and I appreciate you calling me.
Right.
But these guys, Dave, they were smart. We had a $6,000 camera unit in the kitchen, the security. They would get up under the camera and throw that meat in the trash can and put a bunch of garbage on top and take it out to the dumpster and dump it in there. And then at night after we close, they come jump in there and get all the meat out or whatever they happen to be stealing. I mean, they slicked us. And they were stealing us blind. I was running like a 65% food cost, and that's just unacceptable in a restaurant business. You can't live like that. And but they eat us up.
What was it called?
Blind Pass. It was located at Blind Pass. That's where the Gulf comes into Blind Pass, the intercoastal waterway right there. It's called Blind Pass. And it sat right there. It was a marina, and the bar was in the marina. The bar and restaurant was in the marina. It was, we seated 200 people, had 60 employees, and every one of them was stealing. And, but it's the restaurant business. It's a hard business.
Okay, another story I remember is you promoted festival, or you were just working there when John Prine showed up?
I brought John Prine to Jekyll Island.
You promoted,
I promoted it,
okay.
picked him up at the airport, loaned him my car to go to the art show. When we got to Jekyll, he said, man, how many hats you wear? I said, he said, you the chauffeur? You wear the chauffeur hat. You wear the cab driver hat. I mean, he says, and you loan me your car. He says, and you put me up. I said, well, he didn't have but one album at the time, and he wasn't that famous. And I thought, because I loved him so much, I thought everybody did.
Yeah.
But he hadn't got famous yet, not real famous. And good story. I opened the show. He said, you opened the show? I said, yes. So I went out there and I opened the show, done my little 30 minutes. And then he came on. And I was playing, and Sherry was taking up the money at the door. It was at the Aquarama. Remember the Aquarama? And Sherry was taking up money at the door, and this old couple went up to them, and they said, "We want our money back." And Sherry said, "Why?" He said, "That ain't Charlie Pride." She said, "No, it sure ain't." And so we lost money on that one, but, about 2 or 3 weeks later, we brought in the Amazing Rhythm Aces. And we had a good crowd with them, made a little bit of money, but it just barely covered what we lost on John Prine, so I got out of the promotion business.
That's the shows that Billy Ray was at, because I remember him going to a lot of Aquarama shows in the 70s.
Yeah.
And Grinder Switch was one of them that was playing, Grinder Switch and some other band. But Ray was a big John Prine fan and Amazing Rhythm Aces.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Let me tell you, man, when we brought the Amazing Rhythm Aces in, they sent along a rider on the contract saying they wanted a case of Budweiser and a case of Heineken and a bottle of Jack Daniels and a bottle of something else and a bottle of tequila. It had all these things. And so I looked at that rider, and my buddy, he said, "Hell, I wasn't getting none of that." He said, "Let's just boil them up some shrimp." So we took one of them big old turkey pans like you get it right at Thanksgiving to cook a turkey at disposal, and we loaded it up with big old 21, 25 Georgia white shrimp, the best in the world. Loaded it to the top with cocktail sauce and bought them a case of beer and had it backstage. Nobody said a word. I mean, everybody just was back there gobbling up. And nobody complained about them not having the rider right and everything. And so jump ahead about 10 years, I was in Nashville. Me and Sherry and the Amazing Rhythm Aces was playing at the Exit Inn. So we went down to see them. And after the show, I walked down to the edge of the stage, and Jeff Davis, who was the bass player. Stick. I knew him because he went with a girl from St. Petersburg. And so I went down and I said, "What's going on, Jeff?" He said, "Hey, man, we sitting there shaking." He said, Russell,
Smith.
He said, "Russell," he said, "this is the guy that brought us, that promoted the show that brought us to Jekyll Island." And Russell said, "You the guy with the shrimp." I said, "That's right." And he said, "Man, that's the only time in my whole life I've ever had more shrimp than I could eat." And because, in a restaurant, you get like 6 or whatever, especially in a big city like this, you get 5 or 6 shrimp. But Russell said, he remembered them shrimp. He didn't remember nothing else about it. But yeah, I said, shrimp always does the talking.
Oh, boy. You've had a life now, and then on top of it all, you started putting out.
I wrote that first book. It took me like 3 years, right? Hogan's Boat. Yeah, they all on Amazon.
How many you got total?
3.
Just
I
3
got
books?
those 2 I brought, and I got one called Night Crawlers.
That's the one Lynn was reading
That's the third one.
on my album cover.
Yeah, she started at the back because all of them are set 7 years apart, and they all that one is
That ain't you, though.
yeah, it is.
It is?
Yeah, with my short hair.
Okay. Just straight out of your head, huh?
Huh?
Straight out of your head, or based on...
Yeah, no, I just made that up. It's something to talk about, And
What about...
well, that other one is actually based on a
Buster
boy.
Fuzzwell?
That one's based on a kid. Remember I told you about Lois Hutchison from Hoboken?
Mm-hmm.
Her son was named Tony. He went off to Reidsville for a while to get an education. But he was about 19 years old. And, he was 19 years old. But he come walking down the road. Well, Lois used to come visit Margie Ward, a lady that lived in that little blue block house right across the street from James and Denise. Okay. She would come visit her. They were pals. And so I was sitting on my grandma's front porch, the house we was living in up there, and I was playing my guitar. Tony come walking down the road, and he had long hair, no shirt, pair of cut-off jeans, no shoes, barefooted, just that was his outfit. And he came down, and it was a old rusty screen porch, and he couldn't see me But I could see him, and he stopped out in the middle of the road. It was a dirt road at the time. So, zeroing in, he went, "That sounds like a Martin guitar." I said, "It is a Martin guitar." He said, "I can play the guitar too." I said, "Oh yeah." I said, "Come on up here and sit down." So he came up and sat on the front porch. And he said, "I always wanted me one of them." He says, "I got a Gibson." He said, he said, "I got a Gibson." He said, "But it ain't in too good a shape." He said, "My daddy gave it to me or left it to me or something." But there wasn't a daddy in his life at the time. And so I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Here you go." And he said, "You going to let me hold that?" I said, "Yeah, go ahead." I knew I was in trouble because he reached in his pocket and he pulled out a thumb pick and two of them steel banjo picks. Mm-hmm. And he picked up my guitar and he went, and he just ripped off a lick. And I went, "What in the hell?" It was like lightning shot out of his fingertips. You know, I mean, he was playing. He was like Jerry Reed good.
Yeah. Wow.
And matter of fact, he taught me Amos Moses. He taught me that lick. And took me all summer to get to where I could play it because I had to think too many things at one time. And so I wrote a story similar to that in that book, Buster Fuzzwell. Okay. And
based on
but Tony Hutchison, they called him Skeeter Hutchison. But I said, "Where did you learn how to play?" He said, "On the bus." He says, "Mama's been traveling for all of years and years." He said, "And I've listened to a lot of good players that come on the bus, you know, with her and her band and other bands that was just on that road, you know, playing them third act deals."
What was that song you said she wrote?
Do what?
Lois.
A girl named Sam.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Boy named Sue and a girl named Sam. Yeah, I looked it up on Google the other day, and it's still out there floating around.
Did she do anything besides that, or is that about the only one that done anything?
I don't think she might have done, but she was on Star Day Records, which was King's country subsidiary back in the day.
Well, that's where my mama was from, Hoboken. Lois Hutchison.
Yeah. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, don't ring a bell.
On the front of that book, you said that's a rendition of Will right there.
That's him. Well, I knew what I wanted him to look like. And so Will was over at the house one day. I said, "Will, stand there, let me take a picture." And so I gave it to Lori, this girl's friend of mine who's an artist. And she did the whatever you call it, the picture.
Mm-hmm. The hammer.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I read this one. I was loaned this book. And what was the one you said a while ago? The one that Lynn read on the cover? Your third one?
Nightcrawlers.
Nightcrawlers. I got that one. I haven't not read yet.
Well, them two are set at the coast down where we live.
Right there.
And Nightcrawlers, there's two little girls. They start out, they're 8 years old in Buster Fuzzwell. They're college girls in that, in Hogan's Boat, they're 8 years old. They're college girls in Buster Fuzzwell, and then they're grown up. One of them's got her grandpa's rock mine. She got a geology degree, and the other one got some other kind of degree, and they moved to Atlanta like the people do. And so it's a trilogy. I wrote a trilogy.
A lot of characters in there are based on real life too, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's funny. I was at Hunter's Cafe at Shellman one night, and the bartender, I walked in there, and the Parkers the Parker family plays a big role in all them books. Mm-hmm. Ernest Parker, he's an old redneck, but he's rich as hell because he owns a rock quarry. Mm-hmm. And I walked in there, and she said, "I knew who the Parkers are." And I said, "You do?" She said, "Yeah, some people from Tennessee, they just built that big old brick bat house at Sutherland Bluff, didn't they? I said, "If you wanted them to build that big old brick bat house at Sutherland, that's what they done." I knew it was them. But it was just somebody I made up.
Yeah, I was thinking pretty hard though.
Yeah.
I figured it out.
Mystery.
Back in the day, long about this time, Hugh Rogers Agency, that was Atlanta. And the music y'all played, R&B, and the circuit that you rode, probably, did you ever cross paths with King David and the Slaves?
Yeah.
You remember them?
Yeah, from Jessup.
Yep.
Yeah, I knew Randall Bramlett and David Harris, who was King David. He died a couple of years ago, you know.
Brother was Moy.
And Herman Gordon, one of my neighbors, he just sold his property, so he ain't a neighbor no more, but he used to be their roadie. That was his claim to fame. I used to be the roadie for King David and Slade. Yeah. Would be.
That's how my intertwining in the music business around 75, the bass player for King David and Slaves, Wayne Scarborough from Waycross. And he had DJ'd when he got back to Waycross. DJ'd, got married, worked at Harold's music store selling instruments and stuff. And he came by and heard us one Sunday practicing out Blackshear. We practiced at a cow house, an old concrete building the cows used to live in. And it's hard to find good places to practice back in those days. But on a Sunday, he came out and listened to us because he heard about a band of young boys singing harmonies. And he liked that idea.
Yeah.
Well, he came from a band that was the gist of R&B, was those great harmonies, you know.
When you, what year did you graduate from high school?
71.
Okay, you might be a little young, but I had a cousin
Thank you.
that lived over here. Well, a cousin, her name was Holly Waters, and she was born and raised here. She don't live here anymore. She moved away, but she would have been class of 63, I think. Yeah.
Waycross or Ware County?
Right here. I don't know which school, but
Yeah, it sounds familiar. But the other connection in King David was when Randall left to go on his own. They needed a lead singer, and they turned to Eddie Middleton, who was lead singer with Men at Work was the name of the band. I can't remember exactly where they were out of, but they were also on that same R&B beach music circuit, you know.
Yeah. There was another Men at Work out of Australia. It was, I forgot the name.
Wait a minute. Yeah, what was it?
That
I think it was
from
Men at
Man for the land down under.
Yeah.
That was Men at Work.
I might have just got that one wrong.
Yeah, I was thinking another Men at Work.
Oh God, what was that? Might have been the Minutemen.
Maybe it was
something
Low
like that.
Shoulder.
Maybe it was
Some other side.
Carpet baggers.
U-turns.
I don't remember. Shit. Okay, but anyhow, Eddie was. This would have been 75. Eddie had a little 3-piece group in Valdosta, and it was breaking up. And he called Wayne up and said, "Man, I need a band. You got any ideas?" And Wayne was playing with us by then. And he said, "I got your band right now." So we hooked up with Eddie in October of 75, and I had to revamp my entire song list. We were playing, you know, Allman Brothers and the Eagles and Doobie Brothers and South Georgia radio. And Eddie was, you know, Brooke Benton and all this black music that I had heard, but I never jumped off deep into it, you know. But boy, man, that song made that music, that soul music. He sent us a song list over to rehearse before we started playing with him, and I said, "I kind of like this."
Yeah. Yeah. I tell you, one of the problems with my career was I went from rock and roll. I went to country when country started getting hot in, in the 70s, I guess. I started country. And then went back to R&B and then went to just Vic Waters. I was telling Will on the way over here, my son, he's got a good band, 8-piece band, and he's on speed dial at the Cloister, Sea Island, because they got suits. They got red suits and they got black suits. Will's plays with them once in a while, but they were on getting all these weddings and things at Sea Island Club and corporate gigs because they could dress up. And so Mason comes to me and he goes, and they paid him phenomenal money. And he said, I ain't taking no more wedding gigs, Dad. I said, why is that, man? They pay you crazy money. And he said, I'm not relative anymore. I went, you think you ain't relative. I said, I said, what do you mean? He said, well, a 19-year-old bride whose daddy is spending $50,000 on a wedding, she don't want to hear Earth, Wind, and Fire. She wants to hear Luke Bryan and Taylor Swift. And we don't do none of that Luke Bryan and Taylor Swift stuff. And so... I said, well, hey, I believe I'd learn a few if it was going to pay the money that they pay you. But he said, no, he said, I ain't interested. And I kind of admired him for that, I mean, he's
a man of conviction.
Yeah, got his bag. But I was always switching mine. I mean, I'd go and do something. And that's what knocked me out about you, Sean. Remember that time we did that thing at Tipsy's? We sat in a circle, me and Crawford Perkins.
Yeah, boy, I loved it.
That was cool, man. But I remember when I don't know what I'd done, or who started it, Crawford or something. But then anyway, it came to you, and you said, "I've been living so new," whatever that. It was one of Hank Williams classics. Was it "Wind Up Above" or?
It was probably that Hank.
I'm a rolling stone.
That's it.
Lost
That's
Highway.
it, man. Yes, God. And I said, "Oh man, this guy's the real deal." Yeah, yeah, I've been a fan ever since then.
Yeah.
Shoot, I appreciate it.
That real country, I just love it so much. And there was a TV show on last week, Willie Nelson's 90th birthday.
I talked to
God,
somebody
I didn't know
the
there
other
was some
day that
talent on
watched
there, wasn't
that. Yeah.
And that Chris Stapleton, Lord have mercy, you were always on my mind. He sang that thing better than Elvis.
Mm-hmm. There's a group of that new breed out there.
Him and Jamie Johnson.
Worth. Yeah.
Yeah. Jamie Johnson done Georgia on My Mind with Warren Haynes playing guitar behind him and Booker T on the keyboard.
Wow.
And you know what that sounded like right off the bat.
Yeah, you got the burro country that
Yeah.
Daddy's truck.
turns a lot of people's heads, turns a lot of people's stomachs.
Yeah.
And then you got the traditional bunch that's really making waves. You're starting to get this thing. I don't know what it's called, but it's country, and it's called trailer trash.
What are you talking about?
I don't know. That's what it reminds me of. It's great.
Who?
Paul Coffin.
Oh,
I mean,
man, I love that dude.
You know Paul Coffin?
Yeah, Lord, he's
God
something.
almighty.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on top of it. Him, and
Yes.
I also like that Charlie Crockett.
Yeah.
He's got a unique style. He sounds like Charlie Crockett. I'm Charlie Crockett, E with an EY, just like Charlie Pride.
Yeah.
But he got it going on.
Yeah, so there's some carriers of the torch out
Yeah.
there.
But that Paul Cawthon, boy, I mean, he lets it fly.
Yeah.
We was listening to that this weekend. I put it on
What do they call
Spotify.
that, Dave?
I
Trailer
don't- that
trash.
was my
Oh,
translation. That was my
Oh,
double wide genre.
yeah.
It's
That
got a
guy's
heavy, very heavily influenced by black music.
Yeah.
The rap, I guess, or hip hop.
Uh-huh.
Very, very modern sounding, but at the same time is wailing.
Yeah.
That's the thing about Paul Cawthon to me is it sounds like he's trying. It sounds like a musician, a good playing, talented musician, trying to appease to this bro country crowd But he's like, but I'm gonna do it like this.
That's right.
But I'm gonna put this little slide in there where, you know.
That's right. He don't mind throwing that F-bomb out
Oh
there.
yeah.
F the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's. I sent his agent email last year just for the heck of it. He came back with a figure, and I said, "All right, then, no." Yeah, most of them when you send them out
Takes a lot
a
of money.
booking request, if it's anywhere within reason, I always divide it in half immediately and then start there.
Yeah.
You know, but some of them are way out there.
Takes a lot of money to keep him out of jail.
Yeah.
It's a quarter to two.
He got arrested in North Carolina last year sometime.
He's living the James Brown lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. I went through a little when I was down in Florida in that restaurant thing, we went through a little New Orleans kind of deal, just doing a lot of Neville Brothers and Dr. John. And I worked the show with Dr. John down in St. Pete. I opened the show. Right before the showtime, when I opened the show, which I had a lot of nerve doing, and but I played the guitar. I didn't get on that piano because I didn't want to be just humiliated. And but it had my piano. He was using my piano. And right before we went on, we was backstage barbecuing one up. And he was drinking a cup of coffee. And he coughed, and when he did, he spilt it right down his vest. He had on a three-piece suit, and he spilled it, had a big old brown coffee stain. I think I sent you a picture of that somewhere, but he got that. It was me and him, and he had that coffee stain on his head. But he came out, and the audience didn't like him at all because he had just come off of the Sentimental Mood album, which he had that big Marty Paich done it, and Steve Lukather and them guys from Toto, they played the track, and it was a great album, but he came out and done a single, and then people wanted to hear that. They wanted to hear what that album sounded like, you know, and he didn't go over real well, and which made me help me out because I just stood up there and told my bullshit stories, you know. I just get up there and tell them about Will, and I said, first time I met Will, I walked outside to have an attitude adjustment, and Will was slapping a busboy around, just knocking him upside the head. And I grabbed him, pulled him off, and said, "What is wrong with you, Willie?" And he said, "This little bastard loosened one of my guitar strings." And I said, "So what?" He said, "He won't tell me which one it was." So, you know, you got to fall back on your charm once in a while.
Well, you've opened or you've shared stage with a lot of them, haven't you? Mm-hmm. What about the Texas story? When you played in Texas.
When the guy was going to kill me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was in Dallas, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a lot funnier than it is.
The big band.
Scared.
And they would always come out and do a couple of songs first, and then Jerry, the guy on the far, the one in Muscle Shoals, he was the MC when I wasn't on stage. He'd come out and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the blah, blah, blah. You know, Vic Waters, let's make welcome Vic Waters." Well, there was a long thing from the dressing room down the side of the room. It was a long, skinny room down the side of the room up to the stage. And as I was walking, some guy jumped up on the stage and started dancing around and acting like a fool and trying to get to the microphone. Jerry was trying to keep him off, you know, like that. They finally got him off the stage, and I walked up on the stage, and I said, "Is there a cowboy in the house?" And in Dallas, Texas, if you say that, 99% of them is going to, "Yeah, I am." I said, "Well, how about riding that jackass out of here?" And this guy turned around and said, "I'll blow your fucking brains out, boy." And I went, "What?" Like, you know, I said, "Oh, shit. You know, what am I going to do now?" And so no, I wasn't going to let it go that way. I says, "You know, you need to put a toilet seat on your mouth, let everybody use it." And so he turned around and he started heading toward the door. Well, I was about halfway through my first song, and here come the owner and two bouncers, or the doorman and another guy that was, I guess, a bouncer. And they came up, and they came over to the other side of the stage and motioned for Jerry to come down. And Jerry went down there and listened to him a minute. He said, okay. And he walked over to me. He said, when you leave the stage, go down on that side. And he said, cut the show. Go ahead and cut your show short. Wow. And so I went over there, and I got down between it, and they escorted me out and got me to my car. And I said, take off, bud. Get out of here. And so I left. And so Jerry came in after the show was over. I was at the hotel. They didn't know where I lived. Jerry came in and he says, boy, you done it. And I said, what? He said, that guy just got out of a damn psychiatric hospital because he killed a guy that we caught with his girlfriend, and the guy pissed him off, and he killed him, and he's going to kill you. I went, woo, I got Sherry in the car, and next stop, Houston. We was on our way, man, out of town. But sometimes your mouth can get you in trouble if you're on that microphone. But yeah, he was going to do me in. And he said it loud enough the whole crowd heard it, and most of them knew who he was.
One song that night? Was it just one song, or did you
I'd done a couple of songs, but he said cut it short, and I did. And I saw them over there waiting for me, and so I said, well, thank you very much. And I booked out, and the band kept on, but they could have done the rest of the show without me. Just done my songs, and Jerry sang them,
Yeah.
But
Dang. They couldn't stop him from coming back in, or?
I don't know if they could or not, but they didn't want to take no chance. He was going to his car to get something.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to take a chance because he had already proven himself.
Right. Well, that was pretty good move by the owners there.
Yeah.
Could have been bad.
Then at my little bar in the woods out there where his uncle used to come, the oyster shucker, one night I was closing up, and like I said, it was run two-handed, and I'd sent Sherry home, and I was there, and I'm getting the money out and counting and doing my thing, and it was me, Frankie Strickland, a buddy of mine from Shellman, and another guy, Rodney Sawyer, another friend of mine, and Stevie Popple, who was he was a guy I had known all my life, and he'd always been about half off kilter, and he came up there and he said, how about playing us a couple of more songs on the piano? And I went, I said, I'm closing up, man. I'm locking up. The lights were on, had the lights on bright. And he goes, well, I bet if I go get my Tommy gun, you'll play one. I said, you can go get the jammed Alabama National Guard, Stevie, if you want to, but I ain't playing no more. And he left. He went outside. And Frankie says, you don't suppose that crazy bastard went to get a gun, do you? And I said, no, man. I said, Stevie's full of crap. I've known him all my life. So I went over there and I opened the front door and looked out, and he's getting out of his truck with his rifle, his deer rifle up behind the seat, and he's locking one in the chamber. And he gets on the front hood of the truck like this, and he aims it at the front door like that. And I went, oh, Jesus. And I closed the door and locked it. I told him, I said, hey, Stevie's back in Vietnam, boys. Let's get the hell out of here. And so I went out the back door. Rodney Sawyer went into Glady's room and locked the door, which was stupid. Yeah. Frankie got down behind the bar at the end where the cigarette machine was. Stevie comes up and he jugs the door and he said, open this goddamn door. And so Frankie goes, you know, like that. He put the thing up there and boom, and he blew the whole doorknob assembly out of that door with a 30-06, his deer hunting rifle, blew it clean out. Then he took off. He went and got in his truck, and he took off. And we all sitting there going, oh, Jesus, you know, what the hell? And so I called the cops. They came out there, and they chased him all around, couldn't find him. And finally they blocked off. There's two roads coming into Belleville, one at Crescent where the big gas tank is, and the other one. And they got out there and they started easing in, doing a drag net like this, yeah. And they finally caught him, but he didn't have the gun. He had thrown it out in the bushes somewhere. They arrested him and took him to jail. And the next morning, Robert Cannon was the sheriff at the time. He called me and said, Vic, what you want to do about Stevie? I said, I don't care what you do about him. I said, he was going to kill us all last night. He said, well, we don't know if he was going to kill you or not. He was just probably trying to get some attention. He says, but he said, why don't you come down here and let's talk about it? And so I went down to the sheriff's office. And like I said, I've known this guy my whole life. He lived in Cox. and he's sitting there on the edge of the couch, and now he's sober. And he goes, man, I mean, you know me, I wouldn't do man. And he bubbled me to death, man. I mean, he was just bubbled this and bubbled that. He said, I don't want to, you know me. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I don't want you to ever come back in my bar again as long as, I said, and I want you to get me a new door. If not just the assembly, but he blew a hole that big in that door. And I said, I want a new door. Don't ever come back in here again. And you pay to have it hung, put it up there. All right, man, I will, I swear to God. And so the sheriff dropped it. They let him go, and I let it go, and he never came back again. But
wow,
that was a hairy situation, buddy.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
He was back in Vietnam.
One of them other books that James loaned me was Praying for Sheetrock,
Yeah.
which is all about, which Popple is a big name over there.
He was the big
Tom?
cheese.
Was it
Tom
Tom?
Popple.
He was the sheriff all through the.
He was the sheriff 27 years.
Book
Before
that I
him,
was reading.
his daddy was the
His
sheriff
daddy,
for
yeah.
27. So half a century, they had it sewed up.
Yep, yep. And it was small town, you know, it's a very small town. You just look this way.
You know, when that girl, Melissa Fay Green, she quoted me in that book 3 or 4 different
You
times.
quoted
She wrote,
it.
matter of fact, she wrote the lyrics to one of my songs, The Saga of the Great Sapelo Bust. She wrote that in there. And show you what kind of ego I got, man. She called me, wanted to know if she could interview me. I said, yeah, come on out. And I thought, you know, we're going to talk about me. She didn't want to know nothing about me. She came to my house 3 days in a row, and she wanted to know about Tom Popple and about Thurnell, Austin, and everything, you know. So later on, man, that book was made into a play, and the Chicago Repertoire Company,
Heck yeah.
they did a play on it. And a lot of this Mary Lou and David Bluestein and the city fathers and mothers, they went to Chicago to see it. And when they came back, I asked Mary Lou, I said, how did they portray me? She said, oddly enough, said, you're the only one they didn't make look like a complete buffoon. Said they had the sheriff. Now, our sheriff, man, he weighed about 130 pounds. His uniform was a pair of starched khakis and a starched white shirt and a pair of saddle Oxfords, no tie, no gun, no nothing like that. He looked like a guy going to sell insurance. And she said they had him portrayed by this great big old fat pot-belly guy with a shotgun on his hip and a pistol, you know, like Boss Hogg, and a cowboy hat and a cigar, and says it was ridiculous. It didn't even, wasn't nothing like it. And they tried to make, she tried to make it sound like the only reason Thurnell Austin got busted for cocaine, he was a county commissioner, and the only reason he got busted for cocaine was because he was under the thumb of a white man and he was being held down. And, well, that ain't true, man. The reason he got busted for that was because he was trying to make money fast. That's all. And but they switched it around, and she said, and as far as you go, Vic, she says, I said, did the guy sing my song? And she said, no. Said he sat on a stool off to the side of the stage and he held a guitar and he recited the words to Sapelo, recited like it was a poem, you know, and said, and that's all that he had to say.
Well, we sure do appreciate y'all being here. I'm going to close out.
I was just here for support.
He was. And Vic brought his
You're the CNI dog.
his personal chauffeur.
Hey, it ain't everybody that gets to have a chauffeur of such caliber.
Told me a
Now you-
CNI boy earlier.
I always say that where there's a will, there's a way. I didn't know you was
right.
driving
The
people
way.
to places.
I had
there's a will,
I had
there
a
is
real
the way.
good time.
That's it.
You can find you can hear Will all over Southeast and more than that in a great band called Bonnie Blue. He's a lead guitar player, and he puts on a big festival up there around this territory that we've talked about all night called Big Oak Jam.
And we've had him on the
We've had him on the episode. Well, we're closing out once more with I've got a book too, Vic. It ain't as big as yours. Ain't that what they say?
Very seldom anybody says that.
That is a collection of blogs, few blogs that I did here a while back. Let's see. Here's a copy.
Yeah, Dave always ends with the tale of the week.
Tale of the week.
I feel like we rarely tell the guests that. They're like, what is this?
That's
What's
good.
going on?
Well, I try to make it relevant to our guests and or the time of the podcast or what have you. This quote from Tale of the Week 2.23, which meant my second year of blogging once a week. This was the 23rd blog of the second year. I glanced over and saw Steve Popovich pinned in the corner of the motel room by Eddie Middleton, who was selling himself as hard as he could. Before the night was over, Middleton was the artist Popovich ended up signing to his new label. Steve Popovich, respected A&R man for Cleveland International, a brand new subsidiary of Epic Records, had come to Macon, Georgia in 1977, intent on signing Dickie Betts and Great Southern to a recording contract. By the time he left, he had discovered a tall, white man with Brooke Benton's voice. Following the successful industry model that had made big stars out of white soul singers like Tom Jones and Engelbert Humperdinck, Cleveland International set out to do the same with Eddie Middleton. The first step would be to record the tracks for his debut album, Midnight Train to Georgia. The album, a collection of country, R&B, and beach music standards, was produced by Sonny Limbo and Mickey Buckins and recorded at Lowry Studio in Atlanta, home of the late, great Bill Lowry, a giant of a man in Georgia's music industry. Lowry had this to say about Eddie. First time I had the good fortune to hear Eddie Middleton was when he recorded a demo record in one of our studios. I was impressed by the warmth and genuineness of his performance, and I had the feeling that, once again, a Southern gentleman was on his way to becoming a top recording star. Written by Jim Weatherly and recorded by Gladys Knight and the Pips, Midnight Train to Georgia, the title track of the album, was the first release to radio stations across the country, followed by the Tams' What Kind of Fool and Brooke Benton's Endlessly. Well on his way, Eddie was performing less and less with our band down home, giving us the opportunity to branch out, pad our song list, and begin booking ourselves at places like the Holiday Inn Lounge in Fredericksburg, Virginia, where a drunk man dancing fell from one side of the parquet dance floor all the way to the other, finally grabbing hold of Ricky Alderman's Elka string machine as a last-ditch effort for stability and pulling it to the floor with him. I swear that man fell on one leg for 10 feet. Colorful characters, local yokels, and wanton waitresses defined much of our life on the road, with and without Eddie. While each subsequent radio release from Midnight Train to Georgia went higher and higher up the charts, Eddie was growing less and less comfortable with the time spent away from home and becoming increasingly wary of the corporate underbelly of the music business. I'm not sure what he was looking for, but I do know that Eddie found it in late 77 while attending a revival service at Morningside Baptist Church in Valdosta. Once he had fulfilled his obligation to Cleveland International, he turned his attention to contemporary Christian music, founding a group called New Song, with original members Eddie Carswell, Billy Goodwin, and Bobby Apon. New Song went on to garner 8 Dove Award nominations and founded the Winter Jam Tour Spectacular, the biggest annual Christmas Christian music tour in the U.S. In 93, Eddie left the group to pursue his calling as a musical evangelist. Round about 96, I was scrolling through the channels of my TV set and landed on the Christian Broadcasting Network, immediately recognizing the soulful vocals of Eddie Middleton. It was the same presentation, the same high-energy performance as all those nights I played behind him on stages and in nightclubs, from Sonny's Lake Forest Lounge in Jacksonville to the Cockpit Lounge in Nashville, Tennessee. The song he was singing I quickly identified as the music of the Four Tops. The lyrics cleverly rearranged and sung back to the audience as, Jesus, I need your loving. Baby, I need. The only thing missing was a tumbler of Grand Marnier and a thick haze of cigarette smoke. Instead of selling sin, Eddie was saving souls.
That's good, man. Eddie Middleton, where was he from?
Albany. He went to Valdosta on a baseball scholarship, and probably was a late bloomer to, as far as singing goes, you know. Mm-hmm. I think I recall him telling a story of them in high school going on some kind of a trip, and they was all on the tour bus, and nobody knew that he could sing, you know, and they were kind of back there with a guitar playing the hits of the day, and he belted one of them soul standards that evening and turned everybody's head. Yeah. And it kind of pushed him into the limelight, put him on his journey. He was good. He could grab an audience and hold them right here in about 2 minutes, and he could sing. He was good at mimicking other voices. Mm-hmm. You know, he could do Brooke Benton and turn over here and Freddie Fender, and we'd jump around, played a big versatile song list. Those 2.5 years we were doing that, but that was my education.
There you go. Well, man, I sure enjoyed it.
Yes, sir. We're glad to have you, Vic. Always good to see you, too.
Pretty sure I get down to see you this weekend.
That'd be good.
And don't get the crowd too riled up or they might fire you.
There ain't been no crowds lately. It's just been kind of slow every time I've been there lately, but you never know in a business like that.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Ebbs and flows.
Yes, it does.
And Will, it's good to see you too, buddy. Yes, sir. And we thank y'all for watching too and listening, and hope you'll continue to do that and subscribe to us, like us, love us, relate to us. You can email us on somethinginthewaterpodcast@gmail.com. Call us on the telephone. I'll give you Sean's number.
When does this go online?
In 15th of January.
Okay.
In a couple of weeks. All right. Oh yeah, before I go, I wanted to show y'all this. I'm not a virgin anymore.
You got a tattoo.
Yeah.
I only got one myself, and I got it on my 50th birthday. I decided, in case somebody finds me laying in a ditch, I want them to know who the hell I am.
Identifying marks.
Yeah, identifying marks. So,
What's your tattoo of?
it's this guy. I was stoned. I got to tell you, man. And this guy had a tattoo shop, and I said, "What do I got to put on that?" He said, "Let me just freehand a picture of you." And at that time, I had a James Files beard, about this long, and so it's just a man in the moon, like that, and that's the falling star that I are. And that's the other star that I wish I was.
All right.
But at least y'all can identify me.
Hell yeah.
Dave's is Grant Parsons'
That's
nudie
the
suit.
back of Grant Parsons' nudie suit.
Yeah.
It's very, very colorful. Beautiful young lady.
Not even healed up yet.
From Brunswick, works down at Kingsland, Georgia, a place called Second Skin, Larissaburg.
Yeah, she did this one.
Oh, yeah, she
this
did.
is a me too.
That's pretty cool. I heard y'all interviewing.
That's Sean on a good night.
I heard you interviewing her on one of the podcasts.
Yeah, it was just
just
coming out. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
It was the last
New
one.
Year's Day. It was New
Yeah.
Year's Day. Sure was. Yeah, boy.
We should get plenty of business down there, man. Sailors.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The military, she's big customers. That one's getting around, too. I've been noticing a lot of comments building up on that. That was our remote. Yeah. Well, we thank y'all again.
Thank you, buddy.
Always good to see you. And we'll see y'all next month.
When the cold black water finds its way across through your veins, it just might seal your fate. It just might.